Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 131, Spider Web. It was already the end of the 6th month, so the departure date was scheduled for the 7th month. After Shen Zequan left, the advisors withdrew from the room and Zhou Gui asked Kong Ling, "Why did you insist on letting the vice commander go? It's completely chaotic in Cha province. If the vice commander were to meet with mishap, there would be no way that Tse province would be able to explain it to the Marquis. I was initially thinking of getting you to go and have yourselves disguised as merchants during the journey. We are still on friendly terms enough to negotiate with Luo Mu, the prefectural prefect of Cha province." Kong Lin poured tea and nodded when he heard him. After swallowing it, he replied, "We can still disguise as merchants with the vice commander going, and there are Jin Yue going along with us, too. It's much safer than our own plan." Zhou Gui pointed at Kong Ling and said, "You're generally smart as a rule, but this time you're being a fool. With the vice commander's appearance, how can he disguise as a merchant? Those sharp-eyed ones will be able to tell that something is off at just a glance." Kong Ling looked at Zhou Gui for a moment with tea leaves in his mouth. He felt that Zhou Gui really did not understand, so he said, "You're truly an honest one. Let me ask you. From the rebuilding of the Tse province's garrison troops to the planning of our business with Cha province, which one of them is not a proposal of the vice commander? Tse province has been truly benefiting from him, but there are no free meals in this world." Zhou Gui said, "What don't I understand? I understand this. We currently can't afford to recompense them for military expenses, that's why we are supplying the Imperial Army with grains and giving them Biwen hunting grounds. Doesn't this more or less repay our debt to them? Tse province is already doing its best to repay the vice commander for his kindness to Tse province." Kong Ling swallowed the tea leaves he had chewed on until he tasted the bitterness. "We can't repay it now, and all the more we can't repay it in the future. The Marquis repelled the bandits from Mount Luo, leaving plenty of time for Tse province to rebuild itself. We currently can't even afford to supply half a year's worth of grains for the 20,000 Imperial Army soldiers. We did give them the Biwen hunting grounds, and I'm telling you, that will be the Imperial Army's camp and drill grounds in the future. No matter how we try to draw a line between them and us on our end, Tse province already belongs to the Imperial Army in the eyes of others. Moreover, once the business in Cha province started, how are you going to repay the vice commander for this? Also, the vice commander said he's going to assign Jiao Tianya to protect me, but who is Jiao Tianya? He's the former Jin Yue vice commander in Chu capital. If we compare it, his rank is way higher than yours. Before, when we enter the capital, we not only have to get off our sedans to pay our obeisances to him when we see him, we also have to move aside to make way for him. The vice commander assigned him to protect me, but how is a mere commoner like me worthy of receiving such a favor? And between him and me, who exactly will be in charge when we reach Cha province? Yet you still agreed to it so readily. That's why I said you are truly an honest one." Zhou Gui had never been an official before. He was already holding office in Zongbo right from the start. His teacher was also his superior and his benefactor. Zhou Gui served as a tax circuit intendant under him. He did a good job of it, and he was a man of knowledge, too. His teacher valued talents, and so he betrothed his daughter to Zhou Gui. As such, Zhou Gui was spared a lot of the nastiness that took place in the official circles. He was later promoted to the position of Tse province's prefectural prefect based on his qualification and experiences. Before the defeat of the Zongbo's troops, his career had been pretty much smooth sailing. He was not like Liang Qiushan and the rest who were trampled upon by the officials from the noble clans in Chu capital. He never had to endure that kind of hardship, so he truly did not understand much of that circuitous and convoluted stuff. Zhou Gui was stupefied upon hearing this. He said hesitantly, "I am worried too. I have to worry about your safety when you head over with the others to discuss business. The garrison troop is recently established, and the imperial army has left. The only ones at present who can be of use are the Jinyi Wei by the vice commander's side. Kong Ling said, initially, when the vice commander said he wanted to remain in Tse province, it was because we could not trust the imperial army then. Before the Marquis left, you and I no longer harbor the same doubt, but the vice commander still stayed behind. To Tse province, he is the rain that bedews all things in silence. I fear he has already planned things in advance even before they entered Tse province. It's too late for you or me to realize it now. After getting along with Xiao Qiye these days, Zhou Gui felt that Xiao Qiye was hard to speak to, but he was very efficient when it came to handling matters, and he showed others the respect due to them. He was someone who laid his cards on the table. However, Shen Zequin was different. Shen Zequin sat in the seat of honor when he discussed matters with them, yet he treated all those advisors courteously and even respectfully addressed Kong Ling as Mr. Cheng Feng. He was open to discussion when an issue cropped up, thereby giving the others the impression that he was a humble and unassuming person who showed respect for the learned. Zhou Gui's wariness of him had already vanished over time. Zhou Gui stood up, his hands still grasping his robe. He was rendered speechless for a long time. No matter how obtuse he was, he understood it now. Shen Zequin had been going all out to help them all because he was treating Tse province as already his. He said in a daze, if the vice commander is willing to restore Tse province to its former glory, then I wouldn't mind giving this prefectural prefect position to him. Kong Ling looked out into the night. A grey moth, attracted by the light from the study, pounced towards the side of the eaves, only to barge into the spider web concealed between the upturned eaves. After a moment of silence, Kong Ling said, Zhou Gui, it's time to dispense with the title prefectural prefect. With Hai Lianji's death, the moderates in Chu capital have come under attack by the students. There is no longer anyone who can maintain the peace in Great Zhou on their own. The empire is falling apart. If Chu capital is the deer, then Tse province is the rabbit. Without the wolf and fox to guarantee our safety, Tse province will be the meat in the eyes of the jackals in Chu capital, and you and I are powerless against them. Zhou Gui and Kong Ling were fellow students in their youth. They had many years of friendship between them, and Zhou Gui had rarely seen him so solemn. Thus, he said, I know how much care and thought you have expended on it. All I ask is that the vice commander will live up to our expectations today and won't let us down. I'm afraid of such a person. Kong Ling remembered the night when he met Lei Changming. Shen Zequin had simply changed on a whim, chatting with a smile while surrounded by sharp blades all around. He spoke so genuinely, and even the expression in his eyes was sincere. Not only had Lei Changming believed him, but even Kong Ling himself had also believed the act. It was precisely after that incident that Kong Ling began to analyze what kind of man Shen Zequin was. Kong Ling retracted his gaze and said with a slightly troubled heart, I stood out too much tonight and is already considered to have crossed the line. I fear that the vice commander will remember this. I'm your advisor, and I shouldn't have shown off before the vice commander. I should watch myself in the future. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. While the two of them were having an in-depth discussion in the study, Shen Zequin returned to his residence. Ji Gang was already resting, so Shen Zequin did not send someone over to disturb him and simply returned to his own courtyard. He crossed the veranda and saw Fei Sheng still on night duty in the courtyard, keeping guard with his men. It was only when Shen Zequin went into his room that Fei Sheng relaxed a little. Qiao Tianya shared some of his remaining tobacco with Fei Sheng. When he saw the light in the main room extinguished after a while, he got the men to put out the lanterns in the courtyard as well. It's hard for master to fall asleep without the Marquis here. Qiao Tianya stood under the tree and said in a hushed tone. And his sleep is fitful, too. So, if you hear any noise in the second half of the night, don't let anyone enter and disturb him. The gears in Fei Sheng's head turned and he instantly understood what it was. He shifted the pipe away and puffed out a breath into the night. Understood. The Hashi sinkhole is a nightmare. Thanks. Qiao Tianya, however, did not smoke his pipe. He braced an arm on the tree trunk and listened to the croaking of the frogs in the pond for a moment. You've been idle for so long. Master finds it a pity for you to be a mere guard. There are 2 missions. I'll get Shifu to hand you the authority token tomorrow morning. Fei Sheng understood very well that Shen Zequan wanted to use him but did not intend to keep him close by. At least, he would not be able to replace Qiao Tianya. He smoked in silence for a moment, then knocked the pipe a few times, and answered with a smile, "Sure, I look forward to it. But give me a hint. What missions?" Qiao Tianya looked at Fei Sheng and said, "Keep track and record, very easy." Fei Sheng probed, "And the other one?" "Investigate both men from the Lei family, especially Lei Changming. Report every detail of his life to master." Qiao Tianya smiled. "It's truly a waste of talent to hand this task to you. Actually, Ding Tao works fine too, but he's too young, and I fear he has no sense of priority when it comes to carrying out the task, so you are still needed. You're an expert when it comes to this. How about it?" Fei Sheng smiled, too. He nodded and said, "As long as it's master's instructions, there's nothing that can't be done." Qiao Tianya went on. "On my end, there's another matter that I'd like your help with." Fei Sheng twirled his pipe. "You and I are brothers, so no need to stand on ceremony." "What is it?" Qiao Tianya retracted his arm and said, "I'd like you to check the whereabouts of a person for me when you send someone out to keep track of the prices." Fei Sheng took note of it and cast a few glances at Qiao Tianya. "Who?" Qiao Tianya answered, "Yao Wenyu." ******. It was in the dead of night, and the imperial army had yet to rest. Wu Ziyu was drinking milk tea with Chen Yang. The military medic applied medicine for him, and he simply squatted on the ground and asked Chen Yang, "What exactly does the second young master intend to do?" As Chen Yang sorted out the name registers of military craftsmen in the Bianbo camp, he said, "It's master who has the final say." "Why ask me?" Wu Ziyu said, "You and I are old acquaintances. Can't you just give me a little hint here?" Chen Yang compiled the name registers and looked at Wu Ziyu, unruffled. "If you want to have a personal chat, we will drink and dine here. If you want to discuss military affairs, I'd first have to address you as the battalion general. What am I supposed to answer you when you mix personal and official affairs together?" Wu Ziyu put on his clothes and said, "Well then, I'll lay it all out clearly for you. The second young master wants to head over to the east to fight the invaded Shazan camp. I don't think it's workable. It can't be done. The current Libe armored cavalry in Bianbo camp is my squad. We are not the vanguards. We are the transportation escort squad between battlefields. We can still contend with the Liaoying tribe, but if we have to fight the Hanshi tribe, then I'm sorry, I'll retreat with my men right away." Chen Yang nodded and said, "Then, excuse my inability to escort you farther." Wu Ziyu clicked his tongue. With a look of impatience, he asked, "What do you mean by this?" Chen Yang set aside the name registers and said, "If you say these words to my master, this is how he will answer you, too. If you want to leave, then sure, just go." Wu Ziyu said, "When I talk about leaving, it's not because I'm afraid of fighting a battle with the Hanshi tribe, but because I can't afford to fight a battle against them at present. Why throw an egg against a rock and court defeat by fighting against overwhelming odds? The battle steeds and military craftsmen from the Bianbo camp are valuable resources for Libe. What good will it do to waste more time here with those Bianbo people? Send them on to the northeast supply route as soon as possible, and we will have reinforcements from the 3 great training divisions of Liaoyang. It won't be too late to turn back again then. It won't be too late." Xiao Qiye just so happened to lift the curtain. He stooped over to enter, then wiped away the water on his hands. "How did you come to this conclusion?" Tell me about it. As soon as Xiao Qiye entered, Wu Ziyu felt it growing darker in the tent. The military medic packed his medicine case, bowed in farewell to Xiao Qiye, and withdrew from the tent. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, Wu Ziyu did not dare to continue looking at Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye tossed the handkerchief to Chen Yang and made his way over to sit by the stove. There was still milk tea being kept warm on it. It had been a long time since Xiao Qiye had last drank it. Gu Jing came over from behind and poured a bowl for Xiao Qiye. Silence descended in the tent, and Wu Ziyu felt unaccustomed to it and uncomfortable. Even when he erred in Xiao Jiming's presence, it was not as oppressive as being in Xiao Qiye's presence. Xiao Qiye drank a mouthful and asked Wu Ziyu, "Is there any more fresh milk?" Wu Ziyu shook his head hastily and said, "No, just this one pot, and this one was specially kept for the Bianbo camp to satisfy its cravings." "How about plain tea?" Wu Ziyu answered in the affirmative and said, "How would we not have something to perk ourselves up? There are plenty of tea leaves in the granary. If you like it, I'll get someone to pack some for you." Xiao Qiye propped up his elbow and looked at Wu Ziyu. "Even if you stand here all night, I'll still leave before dawn tomorrow morning. You run at the sight of an attack. Aren't you people the Libai armored cavalry?" This was the second time Wu Ziyu heard Xiao Qiye addressed him as "you people the Libai armored cavalry." He was fuming inside. He endured it for a moment and was just about to say a word when Xiao Qiye spoke up. "Go pack some. Gu Jin, seal it in the case later and send someone to deliver it to Tse province tomorrow morning. While you are at it, tell Lanzhou that all is well." How would Wu Ziyu know who Lanzhou was? From the way Xiao Qiye talked, it seemed as if he wasn't taking the war seriously. Instead, he was thinking of gifting tea to someone else. Unable to bear it, he blurted out, "Second young master. When we are talking about military affairs, I am not the second young master, I am Xiao Xiyan, the viceroy of the imperial army. I asked if you are the Libai armored cavalry and not once did you answer me in the affirmative. Libai doesn't have an independent transportation escort squad under its banner. It only has the Libai armored cavalry. Your soldiers ride the same battle steeds as the vanguards and are equipped with the same longsword as the vanguards." Xiao Qiye stared at Wu Ziyu, drank up the milk tea and said in a slightly mocking tone, "Is this all a commanding general of Libai has to offer?" End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 132, Troops Advance. When Wu Ziyu ran from the battle site to Bianbo camp, he passed by Shazhen camp and also went to Changzhou camp. However, in the eyes of the commanding generals from these battle camps, he was not considered a commanding general. He was only good for grain delivery during discussions relating to military affairs. When the Hanshi tribe launched a sudden assault on the Libai's mutual trade market in the 8th year of the Xian era, the fastest squad to respond to the enemy attack was the transportation escort squad led by Wu Ziyu. That was the one and only battle he had ever fought. "You are the commanding general of Bianbo camp now that the main forces of the Bianbo camp have been dispatched into battle up north. The Imperial Army currently wants to scout for news of the Shazhen camp, and I hope to have the assistance of the Bianbo camp." Xiao Qiye set down his bowl and continued, "It's obvious that the Liaoying tribe's surprise attack this time has been planned for a long time. Cut off access to the Shazhen camp's horse track, and the Bianbo camp will lose its source of information in addition to its protective barrier. It's indeed true that you can ensure the safety of the supplies by retreating at this moment, but the site of battle with Shayi camp as the boundary line, will completely end up surrounded by the Biancha people on both sides. No matter how many people there are in Zhao Hui's 3 great training divisions of Liaoyang, they will still have to split up and assign a team to bypass Dying and head for the battle site in the northeast as long-distance reinforcement. By then, even if there are supplies left, all the front-line troops will have been wiped out. Xiao Jiming chose to use Bianbo Camp as a supply site because it had horse tracks directly connecting it to Shazhen Camp and northeast supply route. It could swiftly provide supplies, as well as rapidly send in troops for reinforcement. Once this place was gone, Xiao Fangxiu, who was still on the front lines, would be cut off from his backup forces. There were no other direct connecting horse tracks leading to the northeast from the northeast supply route. Zhao Hui would have to take a detour, which would still take 4 days at the earliest. In these 4 days, Xiao Fangxiu would have to face the Hanshi tribe to the east and the Liaoying tribe to the south without reinforcements and supplies. The Biancha men could just deploy the tactics of taking turns to fight them, and it would have been sufficient to wear down Xiao Fangxiu's elite forces, who were already exhausted from the long battle. Wu Ziyu's fury had already been extinguished. He stood in silence for a moment before saying, "The 3 great training divisions of Liu Yang under Zhao Hui's command is one of the Libei armored cavalry's elite forces. The Liaoying tribe that has launched a sudden assault here won't be able to stop him. He can abandon the faraway route in the northeast and head over to the battle site from this place." The 3 great training divisions of Liu Yang, as the cream of the crop in Libei, have exchanged the most blows with the Hanshi tribe. Amuer's understanding of them won't be inferior to yours and my understanding of them. You know that Zhou Hui can forcibly break out of the encirclement and rush to the battlefield from here, so Amuer should have also thought of it at the start of the surprise attack. Today was such a good opportunity for a sudden assault, and yet he only sent the Liaoying tribe over. Can you guess what he's thinking? Wu Ziyu's expression gradually turned dark. Of the 36 stratagems, there was a stratagem called letting the adversaries off in order to snare them. Wu Ziyu's squad encountered a surprise attack today at the Bianbo camp, and in the midst of the crisis, his guard would rush onto the northeast supply route with the supplies. By the time Zhao Hui received this batch of crucial supplies, it would have already been too late. Reinforcement from afar was the most inadvisable and unwise. So, he could only turn his attention back to the seized Bianbo camp and make the corresponding adjustments to his strategy based on the number of soldiers from the Liaoying tribe as provided by the guard. Once he came, it was very likely that Amuer would have already withdrawn the Liaoying tribe and replaced them with the Biancha's elite cavalry to lie in wait here. Zhao Hui would then be up against an all-out assault from Amuer. Win or lose, Zhou Hui would be held up at the Bianbo camp, and Xiao Fangxiu, over at the site of battle, would be wholly stranded without reinforcement. Amuer simply understood the Libei armored cavalry all too well. Zhao Hui can't come. We can't win either. The army provisions on the battle site are rapidly depleting. His lordship is still going to have to fight an arduous battle in a few days. Wu Ziyu walked over to the shelf, pulled down the map, and spread it out forcefully on the ground. Shazhen camp is close to Sha'er camp. When Amuer launches a sudden assault up north when the time comes, it'll be his lordship's back that he would be attacking. Tantai, who was done washing up and walked in barefooted with his robe hanging off him. When he saw them gathering around the map, he squatted at one side to have a look, too. What are we to do? Wu Ziyu lifted his eyes and looked at Xiao Qi. We'll lose if we advance, and we'll lose if we retreat. Any move we make will be within Amuer expectation. Tantai, who touched the scar which was caused by a blade on his face and said, not really. He doesn't know about the Imperial Army. We are the troops he couldn't have anticipated. He pointed to Shazhen camp. This place is close to Mount Luo in Zongbo, where bandits are abounded. The Liaoying tribe must have had the help of the bandits to be able to evade Libei armored cavalry's Eagle patrol and bring along heavy equipment, which was the stone catapults, around to the south of Bianbo camp to launch a sneak attack. I don't know much about all these devious schemes, but there's something that the vice young master said that makes sense. Xiao Qi raised his eyebrows slightly. What did Lanzhou say? Smart people don't do redundant things. Tantai, whose expression turned grave. Why would Amuer go to all the trouble of stopping Zhao Hui? If it has been going smoothly for him in his battle with his lordship at the battlefield, Why would he need to split up his forces and send them here? Xiao Qiye bent over slightly and looked at the map. As he twirled his thumb ring, he said, "That's right. Making such plans shows that Amuir is having a hard time on the battlefield, too. It's already the 7th month now. If the war drags on beyond autumn without any progress, Amuir will have to face the bitter coldness of winter. All the Bianchi grain reserves this year have been delivered to the battlefield. The longer the war drags on, the more unfavorable it will be for the Bianchi tribes." Wu Ziyu remembered something. "It just so happened," Xiao Qiye spoke up. "After my eldest brother was injured, Amuir changed the battle strategy he has been using these few years. When I was in Tse province, I heard that the Bianchi cavalry had already fought their way to the Tudalong banner. In the past, their cavalry always fled after a fight, yet it wasn't the case this time. Not only did they not run, they even advanced in full force. Amuir has already lost his patience back in the desert. He's progressively encroaching upon Libei, trying to occupy our grasslands and camps. It can be seen just from this point alone that Bianbo camp is vital. If we lose this place, Libei will have to take a big step back. Shazan camp will soon fall, and our so-called line of defenses in the east will completely collapse. But if we can hold on to Bianbo camp, we will be able to give father some breathing space to recharge himself. With him at the site of battle, Amuir will not be able to shift this boundary line even the slightest." At this point, Xiao Qiye pointed out Bianbo camp's location to Wu Ziyu. "You just have to hang in there until the first snowfall of this year, and you'll deal a heavy blow to Amuir. No matter what, we cannot lose Bianbo camp. Mark a north-south boundary line here. We can only pull forward, we must never retreat." Again, Wu Ziyu said, "Since Amuir wants to trap Zhao Hui's 3 great training divisions of Liu Yang here, how can we stop him with the 25,000 men we have at present? Shazan camp is a key strategic point. If Amuir had the Hanshi tribe stationed there to guard it, then all the more we will have no chance to launch a counterattack." Xiao Qiye retracted his arm and thought for a moment. The Bianchi cavalry is already used to the passive rhythm of the Libei armored cavalry. Amuir dared to place such a bet because he was sure that the troops in Bianbo camp would not dare to head east and launch a sudden assault arbitrarily. Their surprise attack troops were caught off guard. Going by the distance, they will retreat to Shazan camp only tomorrow morning. If we set off before dawn, we will arrive at the border of Shazan camp just at the time when they are resting." Wu Ziyu shifted the legs on which he was squatting and looked at the map without a word for a long time. It was only when his legs went numb that he hardened his heart and decided. "If you have made up your mind to go, we can let you use the remaining battle steeds in Bianbo camp. The Imperial Army isn't a cavalry, and so has no need for battle steeds. Besides, the battle steeds of Libei are too heavy, and they make quite a commotion when they run. They aren't suitable for launching a surprise attack." Xiao Qiye swept his gaze around to look at Tan Taihu, Chen Yang, and Gu Jin. Finally, he said to Wu Ziyu, "Let the Imperial Army say hello to Amuir this time." ******. Before dawn the next day, the Imperial Army set off. Although Gu Jin was still injured, he still assumed the position of a scout. Tan Taihu followed Xiao Qiye, and only Chen Yang was left behind in the Bianbo camp. Wu Ziyu did not understand, but seeing as Chen Yang had no complaints about it, he did not probe further. Dew was still visible at this time. The Imperial Army had only been walking among the grassy fields for a short moment, and already their armors were wet with dew. They did not follow the horse track but the path that the Liaoying tribe took when they retreated. "This place isn't that far away from Zongbo's borders. Master, why isn't there a relay station arranged here?" Tan Taihu looked south and said, "Cross this grassland and run for a day and a night, and you'll be at Mount Luo. The defenses of the Libei armored cavalry are all set up with the Bianchi cavalry in mind." Xiao Qiye looked for a moment with his blade at his side. The bandits did not dare to go this way before. But times are different now. Whoever throws in their lots with the Biancha Baldies are fucking bastards. Tang Jiuqing said hatefully as he plucked at the grass. The speed at which the imperial army advanced was not slow, and it was already afternoon when they arrived within range of the Shazan camp. Gu Jin lay prone amongst the grass and remained still for a long time. Tang Jiuqing followed suit and waited for a moment, but he could see nothing of interest ahead, so he asked, "What do you see?" Gu Jin reached out his hand to brush aside the grass and said, "Wu Ziu is right. There is cavalry from the Hanshi tribe in Shazan camp. The horse dung is fresh and they have set up patrols around the camp with far more vigilance than the Bianbo camp." Then Gu Jin turned over and squinted up at the sky. No whistles, and no Saker falcons. The Liaoying tribe that carried out a sneak attack on Bianbo camp yesterday was indeed just a front. This isn't a good place to fight a battle. Tang Jiuqing said. The campsite has an open view, and it's all grassy fields. There will be nowhere for us to hide if we go any closer. This is the Shazan camp. Gu Jin felt for the tobacco in his robe and stuffed it outright into his mouth to chew on. Not only will we have no place to hide, but there are also iron spikes on the outskirts of the camp, and defensive barriers set up in the front and at the back. All four corners have a watchtower, too. How about going through the ditch? Tang Jiuqing looked back and said softly to Xiao Qiye. They still have to eat, drink, shit, and take a piss. Xiao Qiye did not answer, and Gu Jin looked a little embarrassed. He lowered his head and lay low among the grass, saying in an even softer voice, "There were indeed ditches that lead out in the past. Didn't Master use this move to take down the Biancha soldiers during the battle at the eastern mountain ranges?" Xiao Shisui felt this to be a loophole and so he sealed off the various camp ditches upon returning. Tang Jiuqing wordlessly shut his mouth and lay low, too. The advancing troops' selection of a site to set up camp was very important, and the latrine was the most important of all. Generally, filthy ditches like this could not be close to the army provisions and the tents for dwelling. It had to be deep, or lead out. As a commonly used camp, a ditch that led out was naturally the most convenient for the Shazan camp. But Xiao Qiye previously dug his way into the Biancha camp with just a small number of cavalry and fought from within the Biancha tribes until the Biancha tribes were utterly routed. This left a deep impression on Xiao Jiming. In order to play it safe, the ditches of Libei's military camps were reconstructed into deep ditches with wastes to be disposed of on a fixed schedule. Who would have known that such a change would instead go on to be a problem for Xiao Qiye a few years later? How were they to fight now? Xiao Qiye looked at the sky and said, "No worries. I have a way." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 133, 9 Years. At the third quarter of the hour of Yu, the sun made its descent in the west. At this time, Hu was having his meal. He was the Biancha commanding general who launched a surprise attack at the southeastern camp of Libei. He was born in the Qiang Jiu tribe, and at almost 40 years of age, he was in the prime of his life. After Amuer took command of the four tribes, Hu not only became Amuer's adopted son but was also a capable general under Amuer's command. Coincidentally, he was also the leader of the squad whom Xiao Qiye launched a sudden attack on 9 years ago at the eastern mountain ranges. Hu was an irascible and narrow-minded man, but he was also quite resourceful and knew when to advance and retreat in a war. Guo Wulai had previously suffered in his hands. Both men had hurled insults and spat spittle at the other on the battlefield more than once. The reason Amuer had transferred Hu to the southeast was because the Tudalong banner had already been captured, and also because Hu was a fearsome one when it came to military field operations. He once had Guo Wulai surrounded in the swamp for a day and a night, routing Guo Wulai's main forces and sending the morale of the Changzhou camp plunging. The hero wants me to treat the Libei military craftsmen well, but these people won't yield at all. It's a waste of food to keep feeding them. Hu stripped the mutton meat clean from its bone and said to his vice-general in the language of the desert, "I'm thinking of transporting away all the equipment and food here and slaughtering off this batch of military craftsmen. The Qiang Jiu tribe still has some remaining troops in the east that can temporarily hold the supplies for the hero. Before you left, the hero specifically instructed you not to hurt the military craftsmen." The vice-general, Bayan, was a man with a dark complexion. He was no longer young, but as he was a follower of Hu, he never had the chance to be promoted. He faced Hu and tried to persuade him, "The hero has high regards for this batch of military craftsmen. Don't infuriate him." Hu threw the dagger in his hands onto the tray and grabbed a handkerchief to wipe his hands. He got up and looked out through the gap of the tent flap that had been hung up. "But they infuriate me." Hu bent over slightly and looked askance at the bound military craftsmen detained outside in the open field. "You understand the language of Great Zhou, too. They called me a butcher of the eastern mountain ranges, and they even want to screw my mother." Bayan said, "They have been exposed to the sun for 4 days without food and water. Even the Saker falcons of the Liaoying tribe have to consume meat at this point in time in order to survive. It is said in Great Zhou's art of war that if you want to make them submit, you should not only make them feel fear but also gratitude. You have already made them afraid, so you can give them water and food next. Untie them and show them concern with a pleasant countenance. Then they will be grateful to you and to the hero, too." Hu stroked his short stubble and did as advised. But they overturned the water he sent them, and the curses continued until the hour of high. Hu could not sleep well. He decided to abandon the way of Great Zhou and use his own method, so he ordered his men to skin the military craftsmen who had made noises and had them hung up on the pole rack before the open space. Xiao Fangxiu doesn't have enough to eat at the site of battle. Standing in the open space, Hu gestured at his belly with his hands and said in the language of Great Zhou, "How can he fight a war on an empty stomach? You people are so fat. It's a win-win situation if I have your meat delivered to him after air drying them." Hu whipped all those people to teach them a lesson. Military craftsmen who could not fight war were worthless in his eyes. He even felt that it was a kind of a burden to be retaining these military craftsmen. Only by killing them as soon as possible would they be done with the matter once and for all. He hung up the head of the commanding general of the Shazan camp on the watchtower and slaughtered all the captured battle steeds. If not for his fear of Amuer, he would not have remained in the Shazan camp to await orders. He had already defeated the Shazan camp. He wanted to charge forward and be the first among the 12 tribes of Bianxia to breach the northeast supply route. Silence reigned supreme all around at the third quarter of the hour of Zhou. The Liaoying tribe did not succeed in their sneak attack of the Bianbo camp yesterday, which sent Hu flying into a rage. As punishment, the squad from the Liaoying tribe was deprived of food and sleep. They even had to take the night watch. The soldier standing on the watchtower was already so exhausted and sleepy that his eyes glazed over. The night sky was presently quiet and still, with only a gentle breeze blowing in the air. The soldier on the watchtower rubbed his eyes. Under the faint light of the torches, he saw the grass a distance away from the camp stir in the wind. The walls of the Shazan camp were high and strong. Limited by the location of the watchtower, the soldier could not see the movements at the foot of the camp walls. As the soldier yawned, he heard rustling. He initially thought that it was the rustle of the grass amidst the wind, but this sound soon intensified into what sounded like tidal waves right in his ears. The soldier's ears twitched, and he leaned over the railings of the watchtower to look out beyond the camp. It was too dark. All of a sudden, a row of arms reached out from the battlement, followed right after by a row of men flipping up in unison. Both sides looked at each other, equally stunned. The soldier from the Liaoying tribe reacted swiftly. He promptly let loose a long whistle even while they were trading wide-eyed stares. The sound resonated throughout Shazan camp, and Hu, who had only just fallen asleep, immediately got up and put on his boots quickly. Huhlu lifted the tent flap and was about to mount his horse when Bayan stopped him. We still don't know the details of the enemy forces. I fear we will fall into an ambush if we rush out after them this rashly. Huhlu hesitated for an instant, but in this instant, a rain of arrows burst forth from the top of the fortress walls. Enraged, he shoved Bayan aside and said, "Those from the Bayanbo camp are all wimps, and there is no elite squad from the Libe armored cavalry stationed here. They just want to launch a sneak attack under the cover of the night and throw my deployment into disorder. Get on your horse. The battle steeds of Libe can't outrun us. The hero's command isn't here yet." Bayan tugged at Huhlu's reins and said quickly, "This is too strange. It's true that the Bayanbo camp has no more troops, but since they dare to take the initiative to launch an attack, then they must have come prepared. Huhlu, this is a trap. We should remain here at Shazan camp. Don't go out. They can't breach this fortress." Huhlu spurred his horse on, causing Bayan to stagger a few steps. He pointed his horsewhip fiercely at Bayan. "You've gone silly from reading their books. To hell with your defense. We are the heroic fighters who pursue our enemies on the prairies. If we remain here, we will be defeated." There were merely 500 men in the squad that had scaled the walls, but they occupied the great bows on the battlements, thereby preventing the Bayancha soldiers who were responding to the attack from climbing up. The sharp-eyed Huhlu had already seen the ropes on the battlements and the unfamiliar soldiers, who were still continuously climbing into the fort one after another. "That's not the Libe armored cavalry." Bayan flipped atop his horse behind Huhlu and chased after him. "They're not the Libe armored cavalry." But Huhlu did not care who the other party was. He had fought Guo Walai, one of Libe armored cavalry's elite forces, at the boundary line of the Tudalong banner, and then he had moved southeast and defeated the Shazan camp. He was a mighty general blessed by the gods of Gedal. He was on track to become an invincible legend on the battlefield. He had the power to fight, even if he were to come face to face with Zhao Hui's main forces. The heavy, overhanging gate of the camp opened with a loud rumble. Huhlu led his elite troops out on their horses, but what met Huhlu was not the gentle night breeze but flames ignited by a lit arrow. The horse track outside the camp had been padded with hay. The fire burned, but did not blaze. Billows of thick smoke that followed right after completely blocked off the horse track Huhlu was advancing on. Huhlu choked, unable to urge on his horse. The thick smoke threw the battle formation of the Bayancha cavalry into disarray. There was no way to see the path ahead in the dark of the night. Worried that there was an ambush ahead, Huhlu turned his horse and led his cavalry around the track towards the grassy fields. Within a few moments of riding, the hooves of their horses suddenly sank. The horses of the Guma tribe were fast. The cavalry in front stumbled and tumbled, and the cavalry at the back, unable to rein in their horses in time, crashed into those before them and went down together with them. Huhlu rolled into the grass and saw the newly dug pits in the ground along with the iron spikes. He was familiar with these spikes. These were all traps the Shazan camp initially put up around the camp, but he never expected that someone would move them right under his feet without making some noise. "Retreat." Bayan followed in pursuit behind them. "It's an ambush." Huhlu climbed to his feet and suddenly heard a loud bellow. Tantaihu, who had been lying in ambush among the grass for many hours, drew his blade and charged. More than 1,000 Imperial Army men crawled out from the billowing grass and engaged the Bayancha cavalry, who had fallen to the ground, in a battle. Tantaihu had been wanting to fight with the Bayancha cavalry all his life. He did not recognize Huhlu, but he recognized these horses. The tragic massacre of the cities after the defeat of Zongbo remained fresh and vivid in his mind as blade collided against blade. Tantaihu, as his name implied, bellowed and moved swiftly like a ferocious tiger, his strike so powerful as he faced up against Huhlu that Huhlu was repeatedly forced back into a retreat. The Bayancha cavalry was too used to fighting against the Libe armored cavalry, and the Imperial Army's advantages over them soon became apparent. The imperial army completely departed from the ways of the Libe armored cavalry, wielding their blades with even more deviousness than anyone else among these pitch-dark clusters of grass. Hu Lu's elite troops, having lost their horses and faced with even shorter blades than the ones that the Libe armored cavalry used, were unable to meet the attacks as they usually would. Those terrifying heaviness of Libe was gone. On the ground, the imperial army's blades moved just as fast as the Bianchi cavalry's machetes. But Hu Lu soon realized that this squad was pretty much small in numbers, they could not even encircle him around. Although Tang Jiuqing was fearsome in his strikes, he was merely fueled by righteous ardor. These people had no reinforcements to speak of at all in these vast plains. Their so-called ambush was merely those horse traps they had dug. Rage overcame Hu Lu. He slashed down a man and pressed forward towards Tang Jiuqing, bellowing, "So it's just a few rats." Tang Jiuqing was injured. He kicked Hu Lu away, wiped away the blood and sweat, and continued to attack for all he's worth. The more Tang Jiuqing fought, the more Hu Lu was convinced that the other side had no reinforcements, otherwise, the reinforcements would have long come to help after all this time. Both sides fought viciously for nearly an hour. Eventually, Tang Jiuqing withdrew in disarray. They had no horses and could only beat a hasty retreat among the grasses. Hu Lu's bloodlust was already at an all-time high by this time, so how would he be willing to let Tang Jiuqing go? He immediately regrouped the battle steeds and led his men in pursuit of the latter. He brandished his machete as his curses, sounding vague in the night wind. This provocation by the imperial army had enraged him so much that he was determined to kill them and sacrifice them to his blade. Holding on to his injured arm, Tang Jiuqing dashed wildly without even looking back. He was panting heavily, and he nearly tripped on several occasions. Hu Lu was close on his heels behind him. Tang Jiuqing could not run faster than the horses, and it did not take long for the Bianchi cavalry to catch up. Right behind him, a sweat-drenched Tang Jiuqing covered his nearly sliced buttocks and shouted at the open fields before him, "Fuck your ancestors!" Battle drums suddenly sounded on the horizon, the sound of it so thunderous and deafening that it made all their ears ache. Sensing something amiss from the change in situation, Hu Lu promptly reined in his horse and surveyed his surroundings with his cavalry. Dense clusters of men stood up among the grass all around, wearing grass crowns as they remained concealed under cover of darkness. For a moment, Hu Lu could not get a clear count of them. Hu Lu's horse restlessly stomped its hooves. He looked ahead as the torches were lit in successive order, stretching like a long dragon from where Tang Jiuqing had run into the far distance. The concentrated sound of drumming sent the alarm bells in Hu Lu's mind ringing as he sensed imminent danger. He immediately concluded that he had played into the other party's hands. The main forces of Libe were here, and their numbers far surpassed the Bianchi cavalry's. "Retreat!" Hu Lu commanded sharply as he yanked his horse into turning around. "Retreat!" Hu Lu's horse broke into a run. He heard the sound of running horses flanking him. Lang Tao Shuijin took the lead and charged to the head of the crowd. To Hu Lu's surprise, it caught up with him. Hu Lu turned his head aside and promptly felt terror-stricken. He almost thought it was Xiao Fangxiu, but Xiao Qiye was even taller than Xiao Fangxiu. As they galloped in the dimness of the night, Hu Lu got a clear look at the pair of eyes that was completely different from Xiao Fangxiu's, a pair of eyes brimming with greed so insatiable that it shook him to the core. Hu Lu felt a chill on his nape. He suddenly had the impression that there was no running away under that gaze. Sharp fangs were pressing in, close at hand. To break free of this oppressive pressure, he lashed out at his horse hard. Hu Lu remembered it now. 9 years ago, at the eastern mountain ranges, this wolf pup had bitten off a chunk of his flesh. His troops, with exponentially more men, had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of a youth covered in filth. The horse galloped wildly in pain, breaking up the incohesive formation of the cavalry. Hu Lu could already see the Shazan camp. He wanted to call out to Bayan for reinforcement, but he had only just opened his mouth when the sky spun before him as his head rolled off into the grass. Xiao Qiye had already charged his way into the Bianchi cavalry's formation. His longly blade flung off droplets of blood as he slashed. Spatters of the warm, spurting blood stained his cheeks. At the same time he reined his horse in, he wiped the blood off with the thumb that had the thumb ring on. Huhlu's horse was still galloping when his headless body jolting on its back slid off and tumbled to the ground before the camp, a pool of blood spreading beneath it. End chapter. Notes. 1 hour of U is 5 to 7 p.m. 2 hour of Hai is 9 to 11 p.m. 3 hour of Zhou is 1 to 3 a.m.